Hey everyone, this is graphic designer Roberto Blake, and in today's YouTube video I'm going to be doing my long-promised, long-awaited video on my best book recommendations for graphic designers. If you're just tuning into the channel, I usually do graphic design videos on Mondays where I talk about graphic design and how you break into the industry and things you can do to advance your career. So don't forget to subscribe to get those new videos every Monday. So a few other graphic designers have already done videos where they've done their book recommendations, and in order not to be repetitive, I decided to do a video of my own, but my recommendations are going to be very different because they're not going to be books that are all about graphic design theories, principles, typography, and color theory, but books in general that I think will help you in your graphic design career that are specific to things like how you do the business side of graphic design, how you do things like contracts, and also things that just help you be creative in general in terms of books that help you develop good creative habits and get over things like, mental roadblocks where you can't think of what to design or how to design, things like that, where you just have a creative block. There are also some books that I think can really help with the technical side of things in terms of how you actually approach different problems in the different design applications, and I'll get into those in a bit. But let me go ahead and start out with what I think is the best overall book that you can read right now as a graphic designer. So this book, Art Direction Explained at Last, is probably the best book that you can read right now as a graphic designer, and it is pretty thick, but for good reason. Most graphic designers don't know what art direction is, and they don't know what it means to be an art director. They think it's just a natural progression in your graphic design career that you just grow up one day and you're a senior designer who moves on to being an art director and then a creative director. But it's actually a completely different change in roles, and I'll do a whole nother video on that, but this book actually does a great job of detailing and explaining what art direction is, how to approach it, and what role it has in the industry in general. So it's a really great book for anybody who is a graphic designer, in my opinion, especially if you're going to be a freelance graphic designer. If you're a graphic designer that leans heavily on Adobe Photoshop, then a great book for you to read is going to be Layers. This is one of the books that they actually recommend on Scott Kelby's website, if you guys have ever been there. I also have a ton of books from him that are more specific to Photoshop for photographers, but Layers is great, and it's by Matt Kalawalski. I think I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, somebody will be sure to correct me. But any case, this book is fantastic, and it teaches you everything you need to know about layers, and they are in fact the most powerful feature in Photoshop. So I highly recommend getting that, especially if you're going to be doing photo manipulation, advanced photo compositioning, retouching, things like that. If you're going to be doing key artwork for posters, album covers, or if you have an interest in doing that, then this is a great book for you, and it's a fantastic resource. Now, there are some books that I'm not going to actually physically pull out here because a lot of my great graphic design books, I gave the physical hard copies to my brother when he transferred into the Art Institute at Charlotte, so he has the hard copies of those. A lot of my books now are digital, and I keep them on Kindle because I use my books as a resource reference. And for me, just having the digital copies of them in the cloud on my Kindle just makes them more accessible and easier for me to manage. And it means that they're easier for me to just go ahead and prop up on a stand next to my screen whenever I need them for something. So I can just keep working regardless and still have those references available to me. Of the non-design books for designers that I actually recommend, I'd say that The Legal Guide for the Visual Artist is probably the most important one. This book has all the information, all the things you need for doing contracts and proposals and just handling the legal side of the industry and the business. So I highly recommend that if you're a graphic designer or a digital artist or even a photographer, that you get this book. This is the reason that I don't give any contract advice either in the comments or in the inboxes, because I always just refer people to this book because it explains everything better than I can, and I'm not a lawyer, so I feel remiss in giving any kind of legal advice where that stuff is concerned because I really just follow the instructions that are in this book. Of course, no graphic design book list would be complete without mentioning How to Be a Graphic Designer Without Losing Your Soul. This book is just a must-read for any graphic designer out there. I highly recommend it, as well as 100 Habits for Successful Freelance Designers. Another one of my favorites that has really been formulative in the way that I approach things is the book Branding for Good. This is a step-by-step process to developing and building a brand. And I think it's important because ultimately, one of the most important things you can do as a graphic designer is be a brand developer in charge of somebody's overall brand, which is more than just their logo, but it's their logo, the themes and symbols associated with them, the communication, the visual styling. It's all these different elements and aspects to it. And those of you who are YouTubers probably understand this a little better than most people. So it's a really great book, and the thing is, it'll help you not only in developing your own personal brand, but it'll help you when you're working with clients as well. But if for no other reason, you should just get this book so that you can build up your own brand. Even if you're not going to be a freelance designer, you should, from a career perspective, be building up your own brand, building up your own visual style and credibility, and doing some of your own work, even if it's just self-exploration, so that when it's time for you to move on in your career to another agency, a bigger firm, or another company, that you have this body of work and you have this unique style that is just you and is the reason that you're being recruited specifically out of anybody that they could choose. So again, I think this book will definitely help you with understanding that a little better and how to approach it. So one of the big problems that graphic designers run into is creative block. And a book that I recommend you read is Clearing the Mind for Creativity. This book is not really specific to graphic design, but it is a great book for graphic designers to read because it addresses one of the fundamental problems that we have that can really hinder us in getting our work done. So I highly recommend that you check it out. It has a lot of great mental exercises for just clearing out the cobwebs, and out of all the books on this list, this is definitely in the top 3 of the ones that you absolutely need to have. Finally, the last book that I'm going to recommend in this list isn't a book, it's a book series, and it's the Adobe Classroom in a Book series. Now, Peach Press and Adobe Press aren't giving me any money for this. In fact, nobody is in terms of any of these book publishers or writers or what have you, but I definitely recommend the Adobe Classroom in a Book series because it's essential in my mind that if you're only just getting into the Adobe Creative Suite, that it can be overwhelming and you need a practical and simple guide to get through it. Tutorials like the ones I do on YouTube and that other YouTubers do are great, but being able to have step-by-step explanations of where the tools are, what all the individual tools are, and what the best methods and situations for applying them are is really helpful, and this book series lays it out better than any that I've ever used. This is the book series that I use when I'm actually doing in-course instruction for people, because I've actually taught a couple of classes. I'm not an Adobe certified instructor yet, but I have been paid and recruited to teach classes on the Adobe Creative Suite projects, and I use these books as the course guide for how I do that. So I highly recommend them. These are great books, and if you have a week or two to set aside and can power through them, you'll have a better overall understanding and be ready to jump into any Adobe application and be confident that you can begin to conceptualize and produce something. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like this alternate setup I have. I recently reconfigured my entire room/studio so that I have more interesting sets and backdrops to do different types of videos. So when I'm doing anything that's book related, I'll probably be doing it in front of this backdrop. I'll also probably be doing some of my camera tutorial stuff in front of here because, you know, I can just go down here to the camera bag and I've got the rest of the stuff in the background. I've got my old film cameras. So this is one of the new setups. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget that I do other videos on this YouTube channel. I do Tech Tuesdays where I do just kind of like videos on anything going on in the tech world. Wednesdays I do DSLR video and photography stuff, so definitely stay tuned for that. And as always, I do Photoshop CC tutorial videos on Thursday. We got a lot of new stuff for Creative Cloud 2014. I'm going to try and cover as much of it as I can, so definitely make sure that you're subscribed so you can watch those videos. Well, like this video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe, watch the other videos in my channel, and as always, thank you guys for watching.